I'm Omaid Hiwaizi. I'm an independent marketing strategy consultant working with a number of platforms, blockchain platforms. I used to be the head of marketing at Blipper, which is an augmented reality platform, which is what has led me to the tech space. And I'm really excited about this bunch of opinionated reprobates that we've got this afternoon. Anish Mohammed, who is the head of research at SRH Berlin Information Sciences Institute. Dr. Yannis Kalfoglou, who's an AI strategist. Charles Storry, who's the head of strategic partnerships at SVK Crypto, and Richard Brown, who's the CTO of R3. But what I'd like each of them to do is to briefly introduce themselves.
Okay, thank you, Omaid. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yannis. I'm involved in the blockchain space for the past 6 years or so. I was actually involved with a large asset manager I was working with and pioneered some of the early applications of blockchain for fees management and distributed ledger technology. Prior to that, I have close to 26 years experience in AI, and I'm also advising a few startups in the space, and I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Richard.
Hi everyone, I'm Richard Brown. I'm Chief Technology Officer at R3. For those of you who don't know us at R3, we're a software company who are behind the open source blockchain Corda. But perhaps more famous, or were known originally as being as one of the world's first large blockchain consortia, founded in 2015, focused on figuring out what the opportunity of blockchain in financial services and in business more general, what it might be. And once we'd figured that out, figuring out what needed to be built, the conclusion was there is a huge opportunity, and my predictions will be related to that. But we needed to build a platform which is Corda, open source. It's been around for a few years now, gaining market share rapidly. And I guess most recent news is we just shipped our enterprise distribution or commercial distribution yesterday.
Great. Good stuff. My name's Charles Storry. I'm head of strategic partnerships at SVK Crypto, which is a community-driven fund based here in the City of London, focusing on two aspects: blockchain technology and digital assets. Most recently and most notably, we're backed by Block One. So we joined the EOS VC syndicate with a $50 million investment.
Great.
Hi there, my name is Anish. I'm kind of an old hat in the crypto space. Been involved in a whole bunch of protocols, all the way from academic institutes like SRH. I've advised some well-known startups like Ripple, and I'm part of the Ethereum Swarm team. Mostly I help people with zero-knowledge proofs, smart contract verification, the formal logic, and a lot of crypto economics these days.
Right, so if we start with, let's say, the business end or the use case end, I'm interested to hear what each of you has got to think about, or what you think is going to happen in the near future, or what's happening now. Yannis, I know you've got some strong views on that.
Yeah, so defining near future, let's say in the next year or so, I would see three things happening. One is regulations are becoming a little bit more clear and workable. Looking at, from the big moves out there from the SEC saying that the ETH is not a security, all the way to the classification framework of the South Korean regulator, to the FCA sandbox, receiving more and more startups in the DLT space, the Swiss classification frameworks for blockchain. So I see this one has become a little bit more clearer, which is interesting. The second one is what I like to call the beyond crypto and beyond coin. There is a lot of interesting projects that go beyond the financial services, things like supply chain, and also in different consortia. And then the third one I see is blockchain also evolving a lot with regards to technology. We are actually have good experience now, and successful stories with protocols other than proof of work, and different protocols which actually tackle the efficiency issues of blockchain and scalability.
Right, let's come back to protocols.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about, for instance, kind of new use cases, Richard, you've got some views as to enterprise use cases, obviously.
Yeah, so I guess if I was to predict, I guess we'll get to protocols in a second. If I were to predict what will happen in the next 12 months, so maybe that kind of time frame, I think it's, from my perspective, looking at the enterprise blockchain side, I think we're going to see that the vision that we've been working to for some years now actually becomes a reality. So the thing that we've been at R3 and I guess in the enterprise blockchain space, the sort of the belief we've had, the vision has been that the opportunity of blockchain as applied to business, as opposed to the parallel the parallel world of public blockchains, is all about moving from what the IT industry has done for the last 50, 60 years, which is allowing individual firms to optimize themselves and get more efficient, and move to a world where we can optimize entire industries by deploying software that brings the participants in a trading network, the buyers and sellers in a market, into consensus with each other, and we optimize the entire market. And of course, that's not been possible until recently, because whereas companies are inherently centralized and can deploy centralized tech, markets are decentralized, and to optimize a market, unless you're going to force them into an inappropriately centralized model, you need decentralized software to optimize that market. And that's what enterprise blockchain provides the ability to do. So one prediction, just look at something that's on the train right now. There's a firm called Finastra who've got a product coming out which is already out, called Fusion Lender.com, works in the syndicated lending space. That is a decentralized market. Lots of people want to borrow, lots of people who want to lend. There's no one in the middle who's in charge. But it's manual. There's no IT that automates that market, because there's no one in the center to make it so. With the advent of blockchain, and of course in this case the Corda platform that we're building, you're able to optimize that market, drive out a huge amount of cost and duplication and error, and that will then enable a whole bunch of secondary trading in the future that will drive down borrowing costs and benefit everyone. So my prediction is we'll see this belief, this vision we've been working to for some years actually become a reality as individual markets step by step get optimized through the deployment of these decentralized technologies at market scale, of which Corda is the example that we're building.
So you mentioned about lending. Charles, you've got some views as to use cases that go beyond financial services.
Yeah, I do. But just to kind of go back to Richard's original point there, my prediction on that would be that every industry as we know it that involves trust or is centered around trust is about to be changed. It's about to be changed for the better, but the average user won't know that it's changed, right? They won't know what's happened in the background, what tech has been upgraded. And I think that's something very important that a lot of people are probably overlooking and probably don't understand fully.
That's really, so have you got any particular examples of industries that you think are, coming through? You're talking about tokenizing current industries.
Yeah, sure. I mean, listen, look at compliance, look at security, look at privacy. All of these industries evolve around trust. There's an element of trust there. And that's all about to be changed with blockchain technology. And that's something that we believe at SVK Crypto is something that's going to happen very quickly. And it's a process that's going to change for the better for everyone.
Great, thank you. So Anish, what have you got to say about the front end? You're Mr. Protocol, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will take it from where he kind of stopped. So there's this concept for everybody that the identity is an entity, and identity is something that's going to drive a lot of things. I fully agree with that. And one of the key drivers for any protocol to really allow people to interact is this provenance and identity. Right now, most of the identity doesn't survive on the blockchain, and that's a challenge why most of the decentralized systems have. If the decentralized systems have to actually interact with the centralized system, they have to go through this bridge or the bottleneck, whichever way you want to call it, so you can actually do the identity provenance. You call it KML, AYC, whatever the hell you want to call it. And if you are going to have onboarding the whole billions of people onto this thing, the key thing to happen is this identity. You need to sort this identity scheme out for anything to happen. The other thing I would observe is I think the first speaker was kind of mentioning this. This is a regulatory, surge, as I would describe it, is happening. And one of the things that will really help and change the dynamics of the game is this clarity in securitized tokens and the infrastructure that actually will allow you to have securitized token. Now, if you have a securitized token, you have no liquidity. You are done. So once you have that, and then everything else, everybody else is saying, until now, which is vaporware, will become reality.
Great, okay. So we kind of covered a few different things through the front end. I think we slipped in a bit into the back end there. Let's get in under the bonnet and to do with, I mean, I guess the big point you just made is that the stuff that's enabled, the stuff that enables the scale use cases is going to be at the protocol layer. It's because currently the tech won't scale, and I don't think there's any killer use cases at scale yet already. I don't think crypto money, the amount of transactions that go through, counts as a ubiquitous use case. Even though it's big numbers compared with cash, fiat, whatever, the banking system, it's minuscule. So let's get into what we think is going to change in the protocol layer. Anish, do you want to carry on from where you were?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to ask me what would change in the next, 24 months, I probably would say a few things. Firstly, is this, as I was describing, there's a surge. So I'm part of the Ethereum team, so there was a lot of these conversations that happened. So state channels, sharding, and that kind of innovations is actually going to increase the throughput. So that will actually get you to a level where the challenge you are describing previously, will be solved to a degree. And at the same time, there's this class of things called zero-knowledge proofs, which is essentially trying to prove to you that, I know something without revealing what it is, which is very, very useful when privacy is in question. That's the second part. And the third part is like the ability to actually have, protocols that's in a way verified and published and being adopted, which is kind of tricky right now. The network effect is in there. So you actually have 1, 2, and 3, the network effect that actually will happen, will allow everybody to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, just to add on to his point there, I think you forgot a really important bit. You mentioned at the end the network effects. Now, if you look at any protocol-based project out there, the most important thing is a community of developers, a community of coders, whatever it may be, to support that project. Ethereum, one of the reasons it's so powerful at the minute is because of the network effect. That's its biggest advantage. Now, if another platform or protocol out there had as big network effect, it would be even bigger than Ethereum. And I think that's the thing that most projects or blockchain-type projects overlook. It's the community. Without that, you're screwed.
And how would you say for the, what sort of timescale are you talking about for some of this tech to emerge and the associated communities? Or do you think that's a massive barrier to innovation and entry?
I think it's a massive barrier because you meet so many different projects at the minute that are looking to use blockchain technology for no particular reason because they're looking to trade in on the hype, right? That's what you find. And those guys are like, okay, we need to raise $15 million and 10 of that's going to be for marketing so we can basically get people to know who we are. Every great project that we've invested in or had anything to do with had zero marketing budget. They had a community. The community spoke to the greater community out there, and it built as a network effect, just like you mentioned of Ethereum.
So you're talking about these things kind of breaking out, without due to circumstance as opposed to by design.
I think if it's a good project, there'll always be a strong community behind it.
Charles makes a really good point. Actually, there were 2 points I was going to pick up on community, and you've got a good use case when you don't have to describe it using the word blockchain. So if you take your community point, I was actually surprised by this because certainly with Corda is it started in finance, although it's more broadly applicable. I went to GitHub a few weeks ago for another reason to see how many unique individuals had contributed code to the repo in the last year. It was the year to the end of June, and I did the same for Go Ethereum, the same for Quorum, and the same for Hyperledger Fabric. And I thought Corda would be sort of growing, but falling, but still not there. It turned out Corda had more unique contributors in the last year than any of the other three, which really surprised me. And then it kind of resonated against, I see how busy our Slack is. And we've done a bit of marketing, but not a huge amount.
Right.
People have independently discovered it and are building on it, which kind of gives you the sense that when you're here trying to build a platform, trying to encourage people to build applications on top, it kind of gives you comfort or sort of confidence you're heading in the right direction. And then to your second point about, I normally joke with my team. I lead the technology team, not the sales or the services team at R3. And whenever any of them come to me with an idea, or someone in the business comes to me with an idea, I say, right, explain it to me again, but this time tell me why it's useful without saying the word blockchain. If this thing is valuable to someone, back to the syndicated loan example. If I can explain how I could reduce the cost of borrowing for large infrastructure projects by making it easier for borrowers to find lenders and do so with fewer errors, less risk, a broader number of people who can lend to me, and do it in a way that would then allow them to sell it on, so they're not holding it on their balance sheet for as long. That's valuable. You can put a price behind it, and the fact that it runs on blockchain is just a convenient detail that enables it. It's not the reason for doing it, because that would just be for hype reasons. But there's possibly one other just quick point, which I guess ties to the protocol piece, is once you get to that point, as I guess we're in the fortunate position of being, you have to answer really hard questions, because people don't log on to a blockchain node to figure out what the balance of their portfolio is. They've got existing applications in existing departments to do that. So you've not only got to deploy your node and connect it to other nodes across the network and across the market, you have to connect it back to your own applications. So you've got to worry about firewall security, how you actually integrate with your databases and all the rest. And I think what we'll see in the coming months and years as things like, and certainly for me, Corda Enterprise, but other firms have equivalents, is design decisions that didn't seem important a year or so ago will really come come to the fore and will prove to be important. If you've gone with a point-to-point approach, you can get it deployed. If you've gone with a gossip approach, you'll struggle. So things that seem unimportant at the protocol layer will really show that they'll really prove to have important business implications in the coming months and years, because you simply won't be able to deploy some of these architectures at scale to solve real business problems.
I can see Anish is eager to jump in without the B word. No use of the B word now.
No, I won't use that. So the thing I was about to say was I did some analysis for the ICO tokens for the Strata talk. Strata is the big data conference, and I had a submission for that. What I'd actually done is looked at the projects and how projects normally do, like, bring up the hype. And unfortunately, one of the things I noticed is they do a lot of trickery, even in GitHub. Okay, I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just telling you the truth of the fact that I found. So there are lots of people that gain. There's a correlation between the value of a token and GitHub commits. There's a strong correlation. So there's been a lot of gaming that's happening. And the other thing I wanted to kind of mention is...
The news on those is we don't have a token. So
thankfully, you're lucky, you escaped it. But if you can actually look, and if you really carefully analyze it, and what you recognize is they're adding spaces.
Yeah.
They're adding spaces and comments, okay? I'm sorry, this is just such a... For me, that was
but like adding to that point, Microsoft just bought it for $17 billion.
Yeah.
So the true value there is the developers within that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the value. Looking at that as an indicator to an ICO, like I don't know if that's the
There's a strong
correlation. You know
that's a correlation. What did I say? It's a correlation.
Right.
I don't know what he used to value any token. There's very little that's out there. I analyzed 400, okay? So I looked at a lot of criteria. I had I started out with like 27 feature vectors. I reduced it down. So for me, it was like a lot of it is just marketing. There's a direct correlation of the amount of money people spend for marketing to the money they raise in that sense.
Yeah, but I wonder what the correlation is of how successful that project is over 5 months.
That's a separate one. Nobody knows. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's a separate one. It's just like literally a separate one. If you look at NVT for most of the things, it's close to 0, right? So most of them don't have a block, so-called whatever that you call it underneath it, right? So the protocol that can consume this token and give you anything back. So if nothing exists, you tell me what's the value for whatever billion you raised.
I mean, the thing is, in lots of other spheres of tech, the best tech didn't win. It was to do with usage and
absolutely.
Mass,
Marketing.
Coolness, whatever. Yeah. So Yannis, you've got some points to do with the new frontiers.
Yeah, I think with regards to the protocol, again, from an enterprise application perspective, working with different guys and industries, one of the most important things is onboarding. And I think one of the things that we're seeing with regards to progress is that you have to have the ability to bring in whatever solution you want to do with blockchain, with the flavors of, you already mentioned all of them anyway, without really having to have too much heavy lifting to do. Because there has to be a huge justification with regards to switching off or transitioning from existing systems to the new systems. And I think this is progressing nicely because there is a few applications out there that will allow you to do that. And with regards to the protocol, originally it was actually very fat protocol and thin applications. Now I'd like to see more interoperability between the different chains and more intelligence on the application level, the dApps, the distributed apps. And then the protocol is being as thin as possible and be able to be pluggable to existing infrastructure in large enterprise settings.
Anish has already talked about sharding.
I would probably add something to that. What he's kind of referring to is the value capture in the base protocol layer and the application protocol layer. Okay. And that's a big problem. As an efficiency metric, if you were to look at blockchain protocols and to compare it to the traditional protocols like HTTP or whatever else, you can see that the value that's being captured in a traditional so-called blockchain protocol is so high. It doesn't give any incentive to anybody to go, build like what I would describe like a Facebook or a Google in that sense at this moment in time.
Right, yeah, right. The dApp layer, if I may add to assist, the dApp layer, if you make it really sophisticated, and that's where maybe AI or other technologies can come, then that could be one of the very easy ways of onboarding, because basically you give them the protocol layer, which is an easy plug-in to existing infrastructure, and there is actually an aggregate value in trillions of dollars in IT infrastructure in large enterprises, and then on top of it, they build their own sophisticated commercial models using sophisticated dApps.
So that's all going to come though. Like it's just going to take a little bit of time.
Oh yeah, it's not going to happen.
Like, that's good.
Once you start designing in that front, then you actually can go somewhere pretty soon.
Yeah.
Right, guys, time's up. We're going to move to questions. So can we switch it over? I've been told that the audience likes to put the questions on Slido and not via microphone. So if anyone would like to verbally ask a question, you're very welcome. Please raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll go to the Slido questions. So, oh, we've got one up here. Okay,
Take number 2.
Let's take one up here.
So, like the most of the company accepting the blockchain technology, but they itself is not decentralized. Like, so how do you solve this problem? So company is centralized, but they're just accepting the blockchain technology. So
I can take a stab at that because it maybe ties into question 2 there as well. Sorry, where's it gone? The one about which protocols will survive, because I think it's the same question, different.
Yeah.
So if I understand your question, it was how can you claim blockchain?
So company is centralized, but
Yeah.
they're just accepting the decentralized technology.
Yeah. So
So how do you make the company decentralized?
Yes, there's a.
If there is any regulations.
Yeah, the centralized company promoting a decentralized blockchain. So there's a question here, which is which 5 protocols do I think will survive in 5 years? And my answer to that is essentially also the answer to that question, which is as we were, because we're a company, we're an American company, so with an open source decentralized blockchain. So it's exactly the situation you described. The thought process you went through was, in the enterprise blockchain space, what do we think it would take to allow this software to get deployed successfully in a way that clients will accept and adopt? And the conclusion we reached was because this software has to be deployed to be successful and valuable, has to be deployed at the level of a market by multiple market participants. The network effect and the difficulty to subsequently change it is high, and therefore people will not accept deployment of proprietary software. That base layer has to be open, has to be open standards, openly governed, open source. It's just obvious, and that's why Corda is open source. It's why Hyperledger is. It's why
But in answer to your question, not every business needs blockchain technology. Like that's just truth. It's not like going to solve all your problems using blockchain.
Well, I mean, I think the general point is
You're talking about governance processes. So for example, if you look, I mean, this is a challenge with all protocols. So, I kind of alluded to when I said when the decentralized world meets the centralized world, right? So what I was referring to is you could take protocols and like, take any protocol, take Ethereum, take Linux. Like Linux, if you want to really have source code checked into the kernel, it goes through a process, a very centralized process. Similarly, a very centralized process exists even in Ethereum. If you look at Bitcoin, even though it says it's very decentralized, there are key actors that are very centralized that actually control this decision-making governance process. I mean, until now, we don't have a truly decentralized governance process on blockchain that's bootstrapped, that works in a decentralized manner yet.
Okay, so moving to that question, would you care to name any protocols that you think are still going to be active at scale in 5 years' time?
Bitcoin is definitely going to be here in 5 years' time. Active to scale, probably not, but I mean, it's got its place, right? That's what it is. Ethereum, I'm sure, is still going to be here. Big believers in EOS. I think Neo are doing some pretty cool stuff, and Cardano, we're waiting to see if they can actually execute, but I've got some hope for those guys.
Okay.
On the enterprise side, I think if you follow that chain of logic, it has to be the truly open ones because that's what people will, that's what people in the enterprise will demand, and then people can have commercial distribution sold point to point to certain clients as you go. You can already predict it, and you're already seeing this from reports from Gartner and other analysts. It will be the truly open ones. It will be Corda. It will be one of the Hyperledger code bases, and even when the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance has a standard that people can execute against, which is coming, it will be one of them. They'll be the three in the enterprise space. You can already see it. The consolidation is happening in the enterprise space.
Okay, so that first question, I'm not sure what it means, so let's move on to the second layer, scaling solutions or bigger block sizes, or is there a third way?
Yeah, I mean, it's different ways to look at the second layer question. It's definition of a second layer. If you think of a state channel as a second layer, that's one way to look at it. You can actually use CK's Knox as a second layer, or that's a different way of looking at things. Okay, you don't actually have to. I mean, I don't know why you're laughing, but
I'm just looking at this. Yeah, look at this Ripple of security.
Yeah, so it's like literally, in that sense, you can have a whole bunch of mechanisms where you can compress your transactions, so your overall effort that's required and the data that's required on a blockchain could be reduced. So that's the way I would look at it.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got 20 seconds. 5 seconds each. What's your takeaway for the audience?
Definitely, the future, the short to immediate future is securitized tokens.
Charles?
I think that everyone needs to look into this technology on a serious level and understand it thoroughly.
Okay.
If you're interested in improving the market in which you operate, Corda.net is where you need to go.
Okay.
Intelligent blockchains.
Also,
Right.
buy EOS.
Oh, another question, apparently. Where's the question?
Over there.
Is it that guy at the back? Yes. Do you want to quickly do it before we get thrown off?
Oh, yeah, I think the mic is coming there.
Wait.
Hello, good evening. I'm a big fan of Richard. He's one of the reasons I'm into this space. Since the talk is about predictions, I just want to know what is the greatest fear in the arena of blockchain and what is the brightest future? Can you all comment on that? Thank you very
Okay, we
much.
probably only have time for 1 or 2 of you to answer that because we're over time.
It's your turn.
So what's the biggest fear and the biggest bright future? Well, bright future is we achieve our vision. People grasp that the opportunity in the enterprise is different. There are 2 parallel revolutions playing out, and the ability to finally improve markets in the way that IT has managed to improve individual firms through the application of decentralized technology, i.e. blockchain. The vision is theirs to capture if we do it right.
Fear? I don't know. My fear is that there's another massive bubble and we spend a lot of money and we don't build businesses, but I'm sure enough of us will. Thank you very much, panel.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Great panel. Great panel.